Hey friends, it's me, Jessie J. I told you I would try to do a better job, but every setup I tried besides this one did not work. And so this is the shirt that I'm using today regarding me and technology and trying to figure all this out. So it's going great. Okay. As promised, the habit loop. So I want to show you the first couple pieces of it, which is cue. My goodness. Okay, so I've written up here the habit loop, cue, action, reward. Here's usually what I have people do if I was in a room. I would say, everyone in the room, cross your arms. Just cross them however you cross your arms. Okay. Then I say, now intentionally switch the arm that you have on top. So mine is the left. So take them apart and I'm adding the right. Try that. Now, many times what people will say in the group is, oh, this is really hard, or I can't do this at all. Some people say, oh, that was really easy to do. I don't understand what the big deal is. And some people are just like, and I say, okay, stop. You get the point. Habits are like that. Habits are automatic. I don't think about them. Some of them make sense, some of them don't. But changing them always requires thought. And here's why. We all have a natural cue that sort of tips us in the direction of doing something specific. So usually in a group, I would say, okay, a really great cue to use is waking up every day. Okay, so you woke up in the morning, you brush your teeth, we feel wonderful. Then, this part's not in the book, this is me. I say this little arrow right here, this arrow is, that was so great, we should do that again. So that tomorrow morning, I wake up, I brush my teeth, I got minty fresh. My brain says, that was so great, let's do that again. And I keep the loop going. Okay, that's the general idea of the habit loop. And here's the book. I'd like to be able to give him credit again. This is automatic. I use this a lot when I'm talking about addiction. And I usually add a few extra things, which maybe I'll do in the future. I don't want to be confusing. I add a few things, which is what I call Jessie's loop of addiction. That's what I call it, what I'm teaching in class. I won't do that today. However, cue, action, reward. The next thing to think about is where do I have control? And I'll ask that in a setting. Which part of this loop do you have control over? And many people will say the cue, because in addiction, we're talking about a trigger. Some people will say the reward. And I will always say, no, that's not right. There are a few people who will automatically go to action, which is the correct answer. I can't avoid cues or triggers. I guess I can avoid them if it's a place, for example, but I can't avoid morning. I guess I could sleep in. I can't avoid certain things. So when I have cues in place that are already set, I have to go to work, so that's a location. I have to wake up at a certain time. That's a cue. I have a certain emotion. I can't stop myself from having emotions, right? I'm still going to have the cue. The part I have control over is the action. That's where my control lies, not over anything else in this. The really interesting piece that I found, because all of this so far may seem very common sense. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course, change my habits. Yeah. But here's the thing. When I'm doing this and I'm like, okay, I don't like the action that I have in this specific situation. So let's say, for example, it's an emotion. I'm feeling really sad. And when I feel really sad, I eat my feelings. Okay? Cue, sadness. Action, eating. The reward that I get, it may sound silly because it's like, well, I'm not really getting a reward. I'm actually punishing myself. But the reality is you are getting an immediate reward. Maybe it's the sugar from the food is giving you something. Maybe it's just the feeling of food has always been there for me and it shows up every time and it's delicious every time. And so that's the reward. It also, in the moment, probably doesn't make me feel sad anymore, right? But the hard part about that is my brain does the same thing. Oh, that was so great. You should do that again. So then the next time I'm sad, I have this automated process in my brain that says, oh, when you're sad, this thing works really well to help give you this. And so it creates this automated process. So I have to think of actions. Now, with that in mind, dealing with something as big as emotions and feelings, that's a little harder than, say, time of day. Cue is when I wake up in the morning, I hit the snooze button. The reward is I get to sleep in and delay my day a little bit. My brain says, oh, that was so great. Let's do it again. And then I do it the next day. So if I want to change the action with the cue of waking up in the morning, well, there's all kinds of different things I could put in place. The obvious action I want to do is don't hit snooze. That's the obvious action. But I have to get the same reward, which is I get some more sleep or whatever the reward is. So the key is that the reward has to match whatever the previous action was giving me. So if it was food was giving me some kind of automatic reaction, I need to find something else that replaces that reward that doesn't hurt me or harm me or that is aligned, I guess I should say, with who I'm trying to be. Because everything in life is about who's this broader person I'm trying to be and how do I get closer to that version of me. So if that's the case, if I'm looking at my day and I'm saying, wow, I don't really have systems in place that support the person that I'm trying to be, this is a good way to take a look and say, okay, what systems do I have in place? What habits am I automatically doing that I'm not even thinking about? One of the other things I'll tell people if I'm in a group setting, we all put our shoes and socks on the same way every day. And this is how I usually say it. I say, everybody puts the same leg in their pants first. Do you put your right leg or your left leg in first? Or are you like my husband and you sit down and you flop them both on at the same time? Or when you put your shoes and socks on, do you put your left sock, your right sock, your left shoe, your right shoe? Or do you do left sock, left shoe, right sock, right shoe? And if so, you're a serial killer. No, you're not. I'm just joking. But that is what I say in my group. You do those things because at one point, those things worked well for you. And then your brain said, that was wonderful. Let's do that again. And so then you just started putting it in place so that your brain didn't even have time to say, oh, wait, hold on a second. I don't like that. I actually don't like this action. Your brain's like, no, yeah, you do. Remember this? Yeah, you do. So let's just keep doing it. Okay. Now I'd like to show you the other part that I usually teach that has to do with brain neurons, which kind of helps put this into play a little bit more, like helps settle in to people who maybe are still a little leery about that, like that. I have a lot of control over my day. So I'm about to give you some more information. Hi. I know in this moment, you're incredibly amazed by my artwork. I know you are. I know that you don't actually need me to tell you what these are, but I'm going to tell you anyway because some of you may not recognize the incredible artistic abilities. Okay. These are neurons. They're neurons. Go with me. And I also added the loop up here in the corner so we didn't lose sight of what we're talking about. These are neurons. We have billions of them. Billions of them. And throughout our life, neurons fire. So we have a new experience and a new neuron goes bing in our brain. Okay? That's why when we're young, it's so important that we have a wide variety of experiences because we want to light these things up as early as possible in our lives. So let's say, for example, I'm going to use the example that I usually use when I'm leading group in the beginning to help make this make sense. So one of our strongest senses is smell. It connects to our memory. So one of these neurons is something specific, a specific cologne. And then let's say this is my neuron for Timmy. Somebody I've met in my lifetime. I've never met a Timmy, I don't think, in my lifetime, but I like to use the name. I don't know why. So, the first time I meet Timmy, he has an amazing smell, like that kind of cologne where you're like, oh, where did you get that? That's so amazing, right? Timmy and a smell. Now, these two things are completely separate things. There are plenty of people who smell like this, and Timmy doesn't always smell that way, maybe. But the first time I meet Timmy and that smell, and those two things occur at the same time, it creates a literal wire in your brain. I don't mean figuratively, I mean an actual wire in your brain between those two things. Every time that I see Timmy and I smell that smell, the wire gets stronger, which is what creates the automated processes that we have in place in our brain. Meaning, every time I see Timmy, I smell the smell, I create that stronger connection, which is the concept of neurons that fire together, wire together. Neurons that go ding together, create a wire together. And the reason for that is so that our brain can think of things more quickly that we want to connect together. Habit loop. Yeah. So the issue with that is, or maybe not an issue, I'm shopping. This is me shopping. I'm shopping at Schnucks, and all of a sudden I think of Timmy. And I'm like, why did I just think of Timmy? That's so random. Because someone near there smelled like Timmy. Or it could be a variety of other things. But in this scenario, we're saying it smelled like Timmy. And therefore, I thought of him. That happened automatically. I didn't smell the smell and then go, oh, I should really... No, it happened without your conscious awareness. When we think about this with habits, if we say, for example, when I'm sad, I eat. Every time I utilize that skill, that coping skill, if you will, which is eating in this scenario, I make that wire stronger and stronger and stronger so that every time I'm sad, I automatically have food. That's how we can, before I know it, I'm home from a stressful day of work and I'm eating Hostess donuts that I don't even know when I bought them. Did I even intend to eat them? Did I even think about it? That happens automatically because of this, because of how neurons work in our brain. Next question people usually ask, because I'm talking about addiction, is, can I sever this wire? The answer is no. But can you rewire your brain? Yes, you can. And this is why it's important to know you can't change the cue. This is already created. I can't change the cue. What I can change is what I do when the cue comes. There's a new addition to the loop. I don't know if James Clear is who created the addition or if it came along somewhere else. I'm not sure. I saw it in James Clear's email that he sends out. But in between these two things is craving. So sort of, I have a cue or a trigger. I have a craving for this thing. And so then I just go do it. Then I get a reward. Then my brain says, it's like a reward. Then my brain says, yay, that was wonderful. You should do that again. Around and around we go. Changing habits requires our intention and awareness. I have to know what's happening. I need to know all of this. I need to know what's happening so that I can make changes to my habits. I can't make changes in my life if I don't know where they need to be made. So it takes a lot of awareness. What am I doing when I wake up in the morning? If I'm trying to have a better day, maybe it does start with, what am I doing in the morning? Right? What are my broader goals in life? What systems are in place? And are they helping me get to what I'm trying to get, or are they blocking me from getting what I'm trying to get? But it's our awareness. This is why our weekly reflections are so important, because we can sit down and say, okay, were my systems in place helpful? Were my habits and the things I do automatically helping me or harming me? And maybe harming is a dramatic word, but are they blocking what I'm trying to get to? Are they creating roadblocks, or is it creating an open road? I have to be able to sit down and think about those things if I have any hope of fixing them. I thought maybe I would add my tagline for my podcast. to this just because, you know, maybe tie things together a little bit. A little bit. That was like a villain. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm going to tone it down a smidge. Please remember, friends, get it together by taking care of yourself and the people around you.